How's it going, guys, and welcome back to another Borderlands 4 video. This is just going to be a quick kind of weapons update to the Deadeye Vex build that I posted a couple days ago. I've of course been playing around with the build a hell of a lot more. I've been trying out different snipers, I've been testing out some things that have been recommended to me, and so I thought I'd do a quick little breakdown of guns that I found to be incredibly good options for this build. If you are interested in keeping up with this build, of course you can subscribe here for any future updates. As well, down in the description, I will once again link the mobalytics guide that I wrote. It is incredibly in depth. I genuinely spent a lot of time writing it out, and I have been continually updating it since I've released it. But yeah, with that being said, let's get on into things here. And starting out here, we're going to talk about my personal favorite, being the Boomslang. This is actually the first thing I went and farmed immediately after posting that video, just because I saw it on the big spreadsheet. It was a Jacob sniper, and I was interested. First thing I gotta say is this thing is absolutely gorgeous. It's just a beautiful looking gun, very cool skin on it, and as I've mentioned previously in my BL3's Forgotten series, which, don't worry, definitely still going to be doing that, I'm a huge fan of scopeless snipers. I've always thought that they've looked really cool, and BL4 introducing these kind of really neat iron-sighted snipers just as a normal variant, very exciting, but especially this legendary one, which I do believe is locked to having these iron sights. I've not seen this roll with a scope, immediately makes me into it. And it does definitely fit the purpose of this gun, being for sure more of a mobbing sniper than anything else. The unique effect of it is that after you reload, the next critical hit will ricochet 2 sticky projectiles to nearby enemies, which means that you can just clear out mobs very effectively with those explosive stickies. However, this gun also just hits like a truck. Surprisingly so. It honestly feels like it's doing more damage than it says it is. I don't know why, but it slaps and is just incredibly fun to use. It can be a little bit awkward just given that it has a bit of a weird fire rate to it, being pretty slow, but I think not only just for the single target damage, but the AoE damage that this thing can dish out, it's definitely a worthy trade-off. Boomslang gets a very big recommendation from me. Sticking with the mobbing theme though, next up we'll talk about the Stray being a Ripper sniper. This was actually not only the first legendary sniper that I think I got, but it was also one of the earliest legendaries that I got. And along with that, it was what actually made me come around to Ripper as a whole. The Stray can roll in kinetic shock, radiation, or cryo. The Ripper fires out the initial projectile, which flies straight to where you're pointing, though along with that fires out 2 additional projectiles that will home in on nearby enemies. Each of these projectiles can hit pretty damn hard, and especially if they trigger Bloodshot, this is a very nice option for mobbing if you just don't feel like aiming. Of course, aiming that initial projectile is very important, as that is a third of your potential damage, but you do not have to aim if you still want to get effective use out of this gun. It is a fantastic option for just brain-off sniper gameplay, but really is just a fantastic option in general. Now, the Midnight Defiance sounds also like it could be very good. That's the legendary sniper that was given out as a Twitch drop. I haven't been able to test it myself though, because Twitch just did not want to link to my shift. What it does is on hit, it will spawn additional projectiles from nearby enemies. I'm gonna be honest, I don't even know if I entirely understand what that means, but the way I'm picturing it in my head, it sounds like this would be absolute crack cocaine. I want to snort those words that I just read, have them ruin my life, and then be sent to rehab for decades. Anyone that was able to get this done themselves and test it out on this build or a similar build with Bloodshot, definitely let me know, because again, this just sounds incredibly cool. And it is a damn shame that I got absolutely cucked by either Shift or Twitch. Don't know who to blame. Now that's about it for the snipers that are just like dedicated to mobbing for the most part. Everything else here is definitely more tailored to bossing, but I mean, they definitely still work as mobbing guns if you wanted to use them as such. First up is the Stopgap, able to come in any element other than kinetic. The longer you fire the Stopgap, its fire rate decreases, but its damage increases. The fire rate goes down to about 20%, with the damage scaling up to 750%. This is just an absolutely ridiculous damage buff, especially within the context of this game so far, and you can hit some bosses incredibly hard. It can be a little bit awkward to use, as you do have to fire it in full auto and the fire rate gets really low, but if you start getting the hang of it, start being able to hit crits with it, you can definitely shred bosses pretty quickly. Next up is the Finnity XXX-L, another Vladoff sniper, but I mean, let's be real, this thing should be called the Finnity XXX-W, alright? This thing slaps. It is locked to incendiary, which does suck, but I mean, it is a high fire rate, spammable Vladoff sniper, and the Undead Eye is gonna let us spam Bloodshots on this thing as long as we're hitting crits, which means Bloodshot is just gonna convert the damage to kinetic kinetic anyways. It would definitely still be better if you could roll other elements, but I'm willing to forgive it. The Finnity always rolls with a COV mag on it and just quite simply doesn't consume ammo as long as you're overheating. This means you can just hold down the trigger, stare at the enemy's crit spot, and watch their health bar just get obliterated by spamming Bloodshot. Just an incredibly strong weapon, incredibly satisfying, gung-go burr. Now the final sniper that I want to mention, at least of the ones that I've been able to get, is the Complex Root. If you're familiar with the Complex Root from BL3, this is almost identical. As it flies through the air, it spawns additional divergent projectiles, which makes it incredibly effective against either large crowds of enemies, or, the way that I personally like it, against really large hitboxes. This thing can just dish out a ton of crits, a ton of damage, and can apply so much bleed. Don't get me wrong, it's an incredibly effective bossing gun, but I'm gonna be honest, I'm not super into it. At least for me, currently it feels kind of like it's doing the same thing that like the Ballista is doing, except elemental, but the elemental doesn't really matter because most of the time you're going to be triggering Bloodshot with this anyways. I mean, all those projectiles, all those crits, you're probably going to be triggering Undead Eye, and being a slower fire rate, you're probably going to be popping your rep kit beforehand anyways. So pretty much all that damage if you're fighting a boss is going to end up being kinetic anyways. But again, it's still a very, very strong option. It definitely does have some perks over the Ballista. For example, it is far easier to hit smaller crits with it, just given that the Ballista has a much slower projectile. And also the perk that I really would not be surprised to see the Ballista take a nerf. Now the actual final sniper that I want to mention is the Fisheye. This is an order sniper that fires a wide fan of 3 projectiles, each having an increased crit damage. This is another gun that sounds like it could be very good with this build, especially against wider hitboxes, but as I alluded to earlier, I have not been able to get a hold of one of these because it does not currently have a dedicated drop location. Very unfortunate, sounds cool, almost sounds like it might scratch my pitchfork itch. At least I think that's the pitchfork. That might be the scabies. But once again, if you've played around with this gun, definitely let me know how it is down in the comments. And finally, the technically sniper, but not really, the one that I've probably been recommended to try out the most, the BOD. The BOD is a legendary dataless shotgun, however the unique effect of the BOD means that it actually acts as a shotgun, an AR, a sniper, a pistol, and an SMG, which with this effect means that through the Undead Eye, it can actually be triggering Bloodshot, which means that this thing is an absolute beast with this sort of build. Now you can definitely set up your build a little bit differently. You do definitely want auto crits if you're doing this sort of setup. If you want to see my personal setup that I do have going on in the background footage, I do have that skill tree as a variant within the mobilytics guide. But really there's not too much more to say about the BOD other than this is an incredibly strong and really fun interaction to use. It does of course kind of limit the build in that if you build for the BOD, you're not building as heavily towards snipers in general. So you do have to at least somewhat commit to using the BOD, but I mean even with that variant, you can still very easily use snipers with it, or you can just throw the BOD onto your usual sniper variant and it's still gonna work pretty damn well. Very cool gun, very interesting interaction with this class mod. It's definitely a fun one, and I'm sure this is not gonna be the last we see of the BOD. But yeah, that's about to it for this one. If you guys do want to find out where to farm any of these guns, down in the description I'll also throw a link to the Borderlands 4 legendary spreadsheet, which has all the information about the guns themselves, all their drop locations, anything else that you might need for them. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, definitely consider leaving a like, comment, subscribe, all that. I will be live right after this video goes up, right here on YouTube and also over on my Twitch channel, where there will be a link to down in the description below. And just under that is a link to my Discord server where you can come and join and hang out. But with that all being said, I hope to see you guys in the next one.